Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Campaign Creator. My name is Guy and today we are looking at something slightly different. Well, no, not different. We're looking at it from a different angle. Now, part of creating the campaign, of course, is to create our narrative, to create our big bad, which we have done so far, and then to move forward from there. But it's also about thinking about our campaign in bigger terms as well. So today, what I'm going to ask you to do is to step back and think about how are you going to include your characters, your players' characters, in your game. How are you going to make them feel as if they're part of the story? Well, I don't know what they're going to be playing, you might say. Depending on what language you speak, it might be a different choice of language. It might not necessarily be in English, but let's, hypothetically speaking, say that you don't know what your characters are going to be. You don't know what your players' characters are going to be. They haven't even been dreamed up yet. Your players don't even know that you're creating a campaign. Perhaps they do, but they're not creating characters just yet. So how can we start? How do we begin to even think about including our characters in the campaign? Now, again, this is campaign specific, and probably more likely if you're going to be doing a science fiction campaign, now that I think about it, than if you're doing an actual fantasy campaign or a more modern campaign. Although I am going to argue and do today, the advantages of doing these videos, of course, is that I'm doing them, is that your characters will be invested in your game if they have a central point to call home. So in a science fiction game, my argument goes that because it is on a starship that most of the action will be taking place, or that the characters will be returning to and going from most of the time, a starship becomes a central focal point. In fantasy, we don't often have that. We don't have that singular entity that the characters move out from and then come back to. Well, that's not entirely true. We do have it in the form of a stronghold or a keep or a castle or a hotel or a tavern, some kind of structure that the characters can return to on a regular basis. So what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be using my map making program of choice. You can use whichever one you want to use, whichever one is out there. I'm using Dungeon Fog simply because I like all of the tools and things that come along with Dungeon Fog post just creating the map, as well as creating pretty awesome maps, and fairly easily too. But we are going to be creating a stronghold for our characters to start with. Ooh, a stronghold for level 1 characters if your game has levels. Ooh, a stronghold for phase 0 characters if your game has phases. The idea is that the characters are going to start in the stronghold, not necessarily owning it, but over time we'll have the advantage of being able to run it, defend it, protect it, secure it, and eventually own it and then modify it. And that's going to anchor our campaign. So because the idea of this greed is part of our theme, I was thinking it makes sense to have a central point that our characters are going to work from. It grounds my storytelling, but also it gives them something to fight for and around that is not necessarily an expression of greed, but it's an expression of loyalty, it's an expression of family, and it's an expression of home. Forgive me, I still have this cold lingering, so I'm not exactly clear, not that I'm very clear on most days anyway. So what I wanted to do in this video was I wanted to show you how we create the map, and then later on we're going to show you how we incorporate that map into our world, into our campaign creating process, so that it starts to become central. So by having the idea of a singular starting point, it starts to change how our campaign is going to evolve later on. Now, we've still got a lot of work to do on our central sentence itself, let alone on plotting out all of the adventures. But what we do know for certain is that after we have done this map, you will be able to run your very first adventure. Call it a session 0, call it whatever you like, but once you are done doing this, if you are following along in the campaign creator, as I hope you have been for the last 2 weeks, you will be able to run your first adventure in your world with fairly generic PCs. You won't be able to have PCs that have got 50 pages worth of history. We haven't created that history yet for them to have history to draw from. That's not the point. The point is that you're going to create this space. You're going to let your players engage in it if you want to test it out. So let's get busy with it. Timestamps are below, as with all of the previous videos, so if you don't want to see me sitting here muddling through why I'm building stuff, that's absolutely fine. But remember, the focus of this map is not to build a stronghold for the PCs to call home. That is the veneer. Underneath that simple premise is a game master who is designing a trap to keep the player's characters here, to keep the player characters centered, to keep the players invested in the game, to keep the players coming back for more. All of that is going to go into this map, and it's going to make the map quite different from how we would normally build a map per se. So that's what I'm going to be talking about in today's video. That didn't take me 35 minutes to get there. Okay, so we've got 1 by generic map, usual kind of story. I'm going to use our tool here and just make sure that I am on the right layer. Yes, and we're going to call this ground plan. All right, and the ground plan, the brush texture, I'm going to make a color. So what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be plotting out the geography of the environment. This is not a new technique, as if you've watched any of my previous videos have seen. I'm going to have a river runs through it because rivers are always fun. Why are they fun? Oh, they add all kinds of potential drama for our characters. Things float down rivers, things flow further down rivers, rivers ice over, rivers can hide things, rivers can do some remarkably interesting and difficult things. So rivers, rivers, rivers. We will add in some rivers, then I'm going to add in some cliff face, and we're going to put a cliff over here. So this is now a waterfall. All right. And we'll do that. So that is a cliff face. And I'm going to put a little piece out here. I'm going to see what that becomes a little later on. I'm going to increase my canvas size already because didn't think. So back to our drawing. I'm going to make another cliff out here. Everything that's in orange is a layer higher or more. Okay. And finish off a cliff over there because now we have said cliff to worry about. There's our waterfall. Our waterfall will actually open out into a lake. Blarb. Because that's what waterfalls do. Okay, and then the river will flow away down here somewhere, which is fine, and we know that that's a separate layer. Okay, then we want it just a bit darker, I think, and a bit bigger, and this will just show that it's a layer down. Okay, boom, 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 just like that. All right, so now we have our layered topography. Why am I doing it this way? Now, I am being sneaky, I think. Anyway, I'm going to add a layer on top now, and don't show me the stage so I can see the layer below me, and now I can work on this one, and this is now my ground floor. Okay, so ground floor we are on. I want to have a ruined tower out here, up there. I want a ruined tower here, which is forbidden to the player's characters. Oh, do not go out to the north tower. It is haunted and you do not wish to go there. Oh, no, 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 no. Beware. Of course, they will want to go there. They will want to repair it as well. So it's going to become a bit of an admission to get out there. And I'm going to make that expanse just enough that they can't jump it, that a 30-foot pole wouldn't necessarily be able to cross it either. That's important for me because Again, it gives them this target, it gives them something to focus about. When we need to add in an adventure and there's a strange green light in that tower, it gives us that. So I am using this as it's a home base. Our PCs are going to build into it. They're going to feel like this is theirs, and they're going to want to own this space. They're going to want to come back to it. They're going to want to protect it. In that little lake at the bottom of the river, there's going to be a cave that leads underneath the entire castle naturally. That cave is going to be filled with all kinds of weird and wonderful things. And maybe there's a water nymph that lives in the water and is going to act as a guide to one of the characters. If any of my players create a character that's got some kind of divine ability, some kind of empathic ability, maybe in the well, which we will put into this castle, there will be a water spirit. So we've got all of those options coming through, and all of those options are running through my head as I'm busy doing this layout. Is how do I design a castle that gives us some stuff, it gives us some interesting bits and pieces, but that principally is going to give us much more interesting stories and the potential for stories. I don't want natural stone, I want worked stone floors. We will go with that particular shape, if you please, for the floors, walls, doesn't really matter. Okie dokes, so here we go, and I can automatically see that I need to add in another 5 by 5. And we'll work on that river a little bit later on. Okay, and the cliff face. So, putting in our walls, we want a keep. Now, this is not a fortress. I know I said stronghold originally, but by stronghold I mean a hold that we can be strong in. Whatever. Don't judge me, I'm sick. Right, so there's 10, 20 foot, 10, 20 foot, 20 foot, 20 foot. One by tower to overlook said lake. We will need another tower up here. So 10, 20, 10, 20, 20, 10. Okay, great. So we're going to have a tower here. This is possibly going to be our manor hall, or maybe the manor hall should be here. Yes, I think the manor hall should be here, just for ease of placement. So that means we've got another tower over here, and I'm going to expand again, but not so big this time. So I've got a little bit of leeway, and I'm going to put a tower here, 4 by 4 by 4. There we go. So we're starting to get the makings of our castle, and let's see, if we put another tower here, we go 4 by 4 by 4 by 4. So these are quite big stone towers, which we quite like. We like big stone towers, I think. And then we're going to have our gatekeep, if you please. And our gatekeep we're going to put here, 4 by 4 by more than 4, because it's going to be quite a nice sized gatekeep, I think. Okay, so there we go. That's our basic layout. I will tell you right now, I'm just going to do this quickly. So I'm going forwards and backwards over the same lines to create a single line. This is going to be the gatekeep. You're going to see how it works a little bit later on when I get there. We can start to put in our walls in between, and I think what we're going to do is for the oh, and hang on a moment, we've got to put our tower out here, 4 by 4 by 4 by 4. All right, fantastic. So we have a little tower out there, which they can't get to because we've already earmarked this green as being lower down. Now, what we need to think about is giving the PCs some options, and we'll get there. Trust me. This cliff face, let's go back to that layer, because as we've been expanding, we've been changing things up, which is not a problem, coming back to the layer. And what I like is that we can see the castle above it. I'm going to go with cliff color and just finish that off around here, so we know. I'll just make it all the same color so I remember what's going on. Okay, and then we need the dark green. You might not necessarily need to do this. You might be able to keep track of what's above ground and below ground better than I can. That's perfectly possible as well. Let's do something like that. All right, good. Okay, fine. Great stuff. Back to our upper level here. Did I forget to name it? I thought I called this ground floor. Okay. Now, the actual rooms that the PCs will have access to is not going to be huge. It's going to fit into this little space here. So I'm going to do a hall. Not a big hall. I mean, it's a nice space, don't get me wrong, but it's not a huge space. And it's going to have a smallish kitchen off the side, because you have to have a kitchen, which will have a little larder, a storage room. You, again, have to have a storage room. On this side, it's going to have sleeping quarters, which are not huge. Not massive sleeping quarters. And banking on playing with 4 characters or so, you almost need 4 bedrooms, because everyone wants to have their own room to a degree. So this will be a double-story structure with another 2 rooms upstairs. This is the main feasting hall. What I might do is just come in here and do this quickly. Just close it off. Now, I don't like having multiple shapes on top of one another. So I'm going to reshape this so that they are sitting next to each other, so that if I were to move this, there's no space there. All right, so then there's a bigger room here at the back, and now that I think about it, I could probably do this and solve my own problem by now having enough ground floor rooms that each PC can have their own room if they wanted to. They've got a little kitchen area, they've got the little sort of preparation area, as well as then they've got their little hold, which we will now add in detailing as we need to. So this was an old castle that was built for the protection of this particular area. So we will add in a nice 5-foot thick wall over there, and we're going to have another 5-foot thick wall over here. And we will have another one from there joining in here. Nope. 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 Got that wrong. Didn't I? This point shouldn't be there. There we go. And then we need to just do the final wall, which is between these 2 points here. Okay, so there is our very simple, very, very simple layout of a castle that they might find themselves in. Now we can add in some other bits and pieces. If this truly was a watchtower that once was but is no more, we might want to have it having a little landing. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to come to the landing and actually remove the walls. I'm going to make the wall thickness 0 and 0, so that it is just a piece of concrete jutting out. I'm just going to go to my level alignment. No, sorry, not that one. This one. Stage. I'm going to grab this room and just drag it all the way down to the bottom. So it sits underneath the tower wall. It just looks nicer. All right, so there we go. That landing, presumably, there would be a connector of some kind. So maybe I put it in the wrong place. Maybe this whole structure needs to actually move over 1 jot so that it could link in there, which means this wall needs to move to here. And that just looks terrible. So let's just neaten off the space. So this would connect to a bridge over here. We need to indicate that that is an actual fact what would happen. So we put out that to there. We come back here. We reduce these again down to 0. And there we go. Now we've got this, and then we go back to layering, and we go to stage, and we just grab this room, and we just take it all the way down to the bottom. Okay, good stuff. All right, so now we've got this rather interesting space starting to happen, but it's still not necessarily going to grab the attention of our players. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this wall and I'm going to break it. I'm going to break this structure, and trust me, it happens all the time because of whatever reason that I have not done something, and I'm going to create a false structure. So we start there. This would have continued to here. Okay, so we're going to have these gaps, these mistakes perhaps, where there was the idea of wall, but as a matter of fact, it collapsed and no one bothered to fix it. So that's where we're going to find ourselves. That's the sort of the state that this castle is in. I'm also going to change the flow of this river because the river is now getting in my way. And one of the many benefits one has of being the ultimate creator is you can just change the course of rivers. So I'm going to have it coming in here, more like that. That works better for me, and then it can flow out that way, because I really don't care. Okay, good. Thank you. Back we go. And now I'm going to change this to wood. Worked wood will be fine. Old parquet, wooden parquet, and the walls need to also change to wood, simply because what we would add in is the amenities. So, oh, the amenities of it all. All right, I'm going to add in a little wooden structure here. This could be Fletcher's, it could be almost anything really. It doesn't really matter. We've got this little river going through here, which is quite nice. Then, to give this place a little bit more charm, I have a square structure here, and we're going to put in a shape here. This perhaps could be blacksmiths. We'll put in a chimney so that the blacksmiths can sort of draw water into the smithy to cool down bits and pieces and whatever one might like. So we're going to do that. Then out here, I think what we can do is that the peasants that are in the area, and I think that there would be peasants, I think they're going to have built up some structures around our castle, and let's just do that again, because I need more space, damn you. They've built up some structures around this actual castle itself, and are they're not unhappy about it that the heroes are taking over, but they are there and they pose a potential threat or give us a potential story to link things together. So I'm going to put something there. This cliff face will continue down here, and we will come back and make that look pretty, don't worry. So we're going to do that, and maybe they have put in a structure here. And now I think this is something that I should point out, is that I'm not trying to make it look nice. In terms of a layout perspective, I'm trying to make it look like something was here once and has been forgotten about and abandoned, if you like. So I think that's pretty much everything that we're going to fit in there in terms of our castle's shapes and things. And we can round out some of these corners. So we're going to come in here. I'm going to choose maybe they wouldn't have made that a curve necessarily. Maybe not that either. All that really. Well, maybe this one could curve. Curves are so difficult to work with in terms of interior design, but they do sometimes add in quite a nice shape. So let's say that particular one is curved. All right. Doors. Now, one thing that they have done, which I absolutely love, is they have added in new doors to for our options. We want a giant double door for our entranceway. It must be grand and majestic, no? Because it is our main keep's entranceway. So there's some large double doors. Very nice, very nice. Then we want some, well, they call them dungeon doors, but I don't necessarily need to be just dungeon doors. We need a door into our tower at that point and at that point. We need, that would all be interior stuff, so we would need a doorway into there, we would need a doorway into there, and I've just realized we actually wouldn't need a doorway into there, but I'll come back to that. One there, one there, one here, and an error, maybe, possibly, yes, definitely. How do we get into these last two towers, my lord? You go around the back. No, you'll come in through here and through here. It's just part of life of living in a castle. Sometimes you just have to accept it. We would have an entrance here, and we would have an entrance there, and that, I think... Oh, we would then, most importantly, have our doorway there and our doorway here, leading and telling us that there are these two places that we can go to, but we can't get to at the moment. So there we go, and then we've got wooden doors, and the wooden doors, probably, if I was the Fletcher, there would be a door there, and if I was the blacksmith, probably a door there, give or take, and then we'll try and find a bridge to put over our river. Now we also need our big doors for our entranceway, so I'm going to put some big double doors there and there, so one would have to batter through the interior to get us to the inside of the castle, in theory. Now some more wooden doors, we'll probably put one there, this one would probably be there, and you know, they've probably turned that, I would imagine, into a stable yard for horses, probably, and then we'll put in a door here just to show that people are around. So the players are going to have to come in, they're going to have to clean up. Now, this is what I'm particularly excited about when we look at our objects that we can use. And just recently, I say just recently, but now it's been quite a while, the battleground stuff has been released, and that is these broken walls. And that is, I will confess, a lot of what I had in my mind when I was thinking of this particular map was, well, how do we make it look like this is a ruined castle? Well, quite simply, we throw collapsed rubble everywhere. And we show that, yes, this once was a working castle, without a doubt, is now this sort of broken, ramshackly sort of space where there is this precipitous drop because there is simply no more bridgeway. There's no more causeway. It's fallen away. There's sort of bits of torn fabric hanging around. I mean, you can really go to town in terms of using all of these different options to create this sense that, oh, actually, this is not the greatest space. It's not airtight or water or whatever you want to call it. Watertight, weathertight. Snow is going to come drifting in. The walls are crumbling or missing, as is the case. If I rotate it here, it'll be a lot clearer to the players that, yes, there once was wall, but that collapsed a long time ago. And I mean, there's just different types of ruins and rubble that we can make use of to kind of emphasize that fact, I think. And it's about using whatever tools you have at your disposal to make the space look like it's ruined. So what it's going to do is it's going to inspire, hopefully, our players to come in and go, okay, how do we fix this? How do we make this better? And I think more importantly is that it will entrench them here. And the benefit, of course, that we have here is that once they do start taking over the castle, we can come back to this map, and because it's digital, we can then remove pieces out of it and say, all right, well, we don't need the rubble anymore. We're replacing the rubble with now actual functional bits and pieces. We don't need the torn tent in the courtyard anymore. It's now a proper tent that is now nice and warm, and however you want to play it. And I think that's a real advantage. That's a real benefit, and it really will, if you have players that are like mine anyway, it really will encourage them to want to utilize this keep for their own purposes and for their own adventure options, if you like. This tower option gives us, I think, a lot to play with. It lets us say to our players, you can't get there now, but you will get there eventually. And there are things out there that you might want, you might quite like. You just have to get there. So I think it's always a good thing to promise your players that if they do the effort, they can actually get something of value, something of worth, for their characters, for themselves, for the effort that goes into it. I think it's also of good effort for you to build this structure, however you want to do it. If you want to do it, I mean, you don't have to do it if you don't want to, obviously. To sort of think about it and say, okay, well, this wall collapsed and that wall collapsed and there's some ruins and bits and pieces there, and it kind of looks a bit shoddy, and how do I make that wall look a bit more like this? Another option that you can do, which I haven't looked at, is if we go to jungle works quite nicely. You can then grow ferns and things all over the boulders to make them look as if they've been there for forever, if you want the place to be foliated, as it were, I suppose, to use bad language. But you can play around with different roots that have sort of grown through. Maybe that's why they've broken, maybe that's why the wall is broken. So there's a lot of options that you can play with. And I should point out that I am using a subscriber-based package here to create this map with. It is a subscription-based service, so bear that in mind. Okay, so that's the fundamentals of it. What I'm going to add in now is just to basically map it out and make it feel more like a castle would feel. That's the long and short of it. In terms of designing our key stronghold point, our key place where our characters are going to come back to. And whether it's a tavern, whether it's a brothel, whether it's a starship, it doesn't matter. The principle is always going to remain the same. You need to get your players to invest in that space so that their characters will come back to it. And it gives you so many opportunities. If you just look at this map, we've already got the mission to, if you want to repair, you've got to use the proper stone, and that doesn't come from here. You're going to have to go to Valia. Valia is the only place that will supply stone that will repair this place properly. Now there's a trip out to Valia. It might sound like it's going to be a rather mundane negotiation for stone, except that it no longer is. Now it becomes a mission where when they arrive at Valia, perhaps they uncover some plot to assassinate the Duke of Valia, who in exchange for his life being saved, gives them the stone to repair parts of their castle. Not all of the parts of their castle will be repaired at the same time. And where do you come up with the numbers for how these things should work? Well, there's books aplenty out there in terms of coming up with numbers, but to be perfectly honest with you, if it was me running the game, I would base that around adventures, and I would say, well, 1,000 gold pieces gets you 100 peasants for 3 months, and that's more than enough to chip away and replace the stonework to get this part of the castle working. See how much treasure you're giving out as opposed to how much it should actually cost in real life, and how long it should take as long as the speed of plot. Once you've got the castle where you want it to be, Now you can use it. Now you can attack it with all kinds of strange forces. You can have people trying to buy it. You can have the mysterious cave system underneath it, which we don't have to draw in now. We can come back later. But we have our first adventure, and that first adventure should be our characters. And it could even be, and again, this is just different ways of exploring the concept. Imagine if you said to your players, all right, you're going to create level 0 characters. No class, very little skills. All your skills that you have, you can choose 4 skills where you've got a 1 bonus, whatever the case might be. You're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. Create the basic character, because the characters are all 8 years old or 10 years old. And guess what? They're going to be in the stronghold in its heyday. So you're going to take this map, you're going to clean out all of the rubble, you're going to make it look as if it's nice and impressive, and you're going to hold a festival there where the lord of this particular outreach, this Uther's watch, as I have titled this castle, Uther's watch, part of Uther's retinue is there. Have the player characters start to experience this thing, if it fits within your campaign, even if not, it's a one shot and it's just a bunch of kids trying to stop an assassination. Center them in Uther's watch. Let them experience it, experience the grandiose nature of it, so that then when you come to session 1 and they discover that it has fallen to wreck and ruin and is now a very sad old lord who has no money, but is willing to allow the adventurers to stay because the little company is always welcome, it will just entrench even further. And now we've got 1, 2, 3, we've got already 5 adventures just speaking to this one structure. And if your players later on decide, you know what, we're finished with this watch, we're moving on, we want a bigger castle, we wanted this, we wanted that, we want to go and explore other lands, that's fine, let them do that. But they've had this grounding, and you've had an amazing experience of running a localized thing. You're keeping your player characters close to a central point. You've got lots of adventures that are coming out of the central point. Doesn't get much better than that, in my opinion, in terms of helping you to create an epic campaign by simply creating a single map. It's just throwing out all of these different options. Anyway, I'm going to carry on doing the rest of the video. Well, I'm going to carry on doing the rest of the castle. You don't necessarily need to watch it, but there will be a timestamp for you to skip to the end to see what the final product looks like, if you so choose. If not, I wish you and yours the very happiest of campaign creating. Okay. Now, let's get on with it. So, I'm done with boulders and things, and I am going to start putting in bits and pieces. Now, we said that this up here was the Fletcher, so that means we need to have, I think, a few archery targets. Now, if I was the Fletcher, that's the main entrance there. I would probably have a doll. This river is causing a problem. It really is causing a problem. I would probably set up a single target here, as a matter of fact. I'm going to make it smaller because I don't think its arms would be that big. So I'm going to, or maybe the target's better. I think the target's better, yeah. All right, so we can imagine that on game days or practice days that the archers might come down here and fire a random arrow or so. Take your mark, fire across and see who hits. I think that'll work quite well. I'm going to throw some tables into this Fletcher's space over here. And we're going to put a table right there so that I can put a little little chair behind it for him to work in. I'll put 2 chairs there because maybe he's got an assistant or someone who helps him. And we're going to throw in an old bed just in the corner here because it's nicer sleeping here than it is sleeping in the village. And sometimes you work late and, you know, things get on, and we'll pop a little brazier in because it's cold at night, maybe. And you ought to heat the bits of arrow and whatever the case might be. I'm not a Fletcher myself, so I don't know these things. I'll pop some bows down so we can see that that is exactly what they do. Put some gigantic arrows. Sometimes scale is not necessarily important. I think that's enough to indicate that that is a Fletcher's place. The blacksmith, I'm going to just throw in some key signifiers. A suit of armor for a hobbit. A fairly small weapon rack just sort of tucked in the corner. And then I want some kind of smithy looking thing. I wonder if the kitchen, where was it? Dungeon? Was it in dungeon? So they've got these nice new, you see they've got these wonderful new bits and pieces that they've been adding. And that's what I really like, is that they're very active in adding extra content. Oh, a forge, here we go. I knew they had something. They're very active in adding in new content, which is very exciting for me anyway. And do blacksmiths sit down? They must sit down. And he is going to need, without a doubt, a barrel container. He's going to need a water barrel. They've got to have a water barrel. This river really is being a problem now. It was quite nice when the Queen wanted it, but she doesn't have to bloody well design a castle around it, does it? Does she? No. She bloody well doesn't. Okay, that's definitely a blacksmith. I think let's throw in a sword into the... This is the world's biggest sword. There you are. So it's got a sword. I don't know if they've got an anvil yet, actually. An anvil would be nice, but I don't see one. I can live without an anvil. You can only have so many props before you start just having too many. Right, Fletcher, anvil, out here. This was just going to be some nobody, I think, that has built themselves a nice little house. Whilst we're here, we might as well just populate the kitchen quickly. I think that they would probably put the fires there. So I'm going to do the old trick, which I have shown before on the channel, where the prop doesn't go outside of the room. So you create two of the same prop, one on the inside of the room, one on the outside of the room, and then you just line them up like that. And bingo, you suddenly have this little fire chimney sticking out the side of the castle. Back to our kitchen. They do have a kitchen table, which is very nice, I think. I think the bowl is a bit big, so I usually sort of shrink it down in size a little bit. You wouldn't want it to be too intrusive into the actual space. So I'm going to give her one table there and then put another table here, I reckon. And to be perfectly honest with you, these doors, now that I think about it, if I was the Lord, I'd say bugger the door there. We're going to put that damn door in the kitchen. Let the soldiers come through the kitchens. It doesn't really matter. If we're in times of trouble, the kitchens should be closed anyway. At least that's my thinking. And I love throwing in water barrels everywhere because I feel it's such a chore to have to wander down to go and find water. Put a little cooking pot there, very nice. And maybe a chest of herbs. And spices and the likes, because we do likes that. Oh yes, we do. And then a bookshelf. Recipes of the cook, I suppose. That can actually fit better. No, because you've got to get to the stirring table. Yeah, all right, we'll put that there. Okay, great. That's a... Oh, this tower is bigger than the... No, this tower is smaller than the rest. It's a midget tower. It's not even a tower. there we go. Problem solved. Okay. And this tower isn't a tower either. That's embarrassing. How did I not see that? All right. Well, time to shake up the architecture a little. How did I miss that? Oh, it wasn't a tower. That was a spare room. Well, it's a tower now. And we're back to our room problem. But at least, no, now our access is still flummoxed by that. So that didn't help, but at least our design looks a bit better. Okay, well, nothing ventured, nothing gained. This room will be an office room, so I'm going to do this. And just say whoever gets this room is more important. We'll just do that. This can then extend out over. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. So this is an admin. That's one bedroom. That's another bedroom. No, tower. Bedroom. All right, there we go. It says how important it is to look for bedrooms for your players' characters because they're going to be looking. You know they're going to be looking. You just do. You just do. Right, last thing to put into the kitchens. In the kitchens, we need stairs going down to the root cellar. And stairs going down to the root cellar. One always needs stairs going down to the root cellar. So we're going to put those there, very dark and ominous. Whilst we're at it, we might as well put the staircase in our, not tower, in our towers. So here we go, one there. Rotate you round. So one there. And then one there. Okay, fantastic. Stairs going up, all the way up to the next floor. Last little bit to add in. We have our main dining hall, so it might as well be as spectacular as possible. So for feast days and the like, as we are wont to do. I know they have somewhere, I missed it, decoration, I think. No, they've got broken wood. Maybe we should just do that now. All right, let's do it now before we forget. Okay, so I'm going to be using broken wood to, again, just indicate that the stairs have completely collapsed. Something like that. Just sort of debris everywhere. So, well, there were stairs there. And these ones are a bit rickety. So watch yourself. Here's some debris we can throw in if we want the sort of the colours to be similar. One working staircase is actually quite amusing because it forces the characters to only use that one to get to the roof. So I'm going to stick with that as a matter of fact. Yeah, that looks quite nice. I actually think that looks better. I'll just layer it so we've got different colours. There you are. Okie dokes. Two collapsed tower staircases, not going anywhere. I'm going to spider web the hell out of these corridors. Now we obviously will be undoing this for that session 0 game that we might have if we're going to do it that way. I don't see any reason why not. It's always easier to remove stuff than it is to add stuff, although that's not really true. I mean, it's so simple to just chuck down whatever you want, really, that it's not a chore at all. So those are not used anymore. Now, that's not what I was actually looking for. So let's go back. There we go. Square carpet. Thank you. Now, I was going to use a square carpet as sort of a tableclothy thing for the table, obviously, to make it feel more like a long table. That's the tight corner. Yeah. Well, there's no doors there either, so that's fine. Okay, good. We don't need to add any pirates just yet. We'll come back to adding pirates. We've got our stairs, bathtub. Is that what could be in this chamber? Is he a bit of a prude? All right, I'll add in a bath. I don't see why not. I think it makes for an interesting story anyway. I'll put some braziers here and there just to fill that up. That's going to be down there, so I don't have to worry about that. Nice big bare carpet as a welcome to my grand hall. Be feared me, for I am mighty. Then, oh, there is an anvil. Look at that. I thought there might have been one, but I didn't want to say and then not be able to find it. Never be afraid to go back and add more stuffs, because we like to add stuffs. What else? Oh, bucket of water for sure, considering where this is. And a few more little barrels, perhaps. Just so that this is definitely the... well, it's... we do the cleaning of ourselves in there. I'm just going to put 2 suits of armor just to make it feel a little bit more sort of gothic-y. All right, good. And then we're going to make some beds quickly. So this is the one room that will get fought over because it's the largest. This is probably the nicest. This is probably the most decent. So we'll figure out. Your players will figure out anyway. Just who gets what, and that's sometimes fun to watch. I don't know. Maybe that's just me being statistic. I'm not going to populate it with too much stuff. I'm going to let the players do that so they can decide if they want a table in there or whatever. And oftentimes that's too far. The players don't need to decide if they need a table. It's a case of, well, yeah, you don't need to go into that kind of detail. You really, 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 really don't. But if you want to, you now can. So food and dishes. One of my favourite things to just add to a table, again, to make it feel a little bit more like it's meant to be what it is pretending to be. So we'll put in some knives and forks here and there. Wooden bowls. I quite like the fact that we have that choice. Tankards or tankard. Gigantic tankard. My God, that tankard is big. It might not look like it here, but certainly one can see that. A silver platter. Well, we are trying to make it look as if it's ruined, so maybe a single silver platter on the table. But I don't think necessarily there needs to be anything with it. He says adding a bottle of wine. I don't think there needs to be any food here. I think that gives us enough that this is the main dining hall. There's the kitchen where various servants and things would sleep around the central space. What I have completely forgotten about, and you were probably shouting at me all along, was stairs. There's no bloody stairs to the second floor. At least none that are accessible easily by our... king or nobleman or whomever is staying here. Then you can't expect them to take the spiral stairs up either. I don't think that works very well. So what I'm going to do, and this is not something that was uncommon, which is perhaps a bit scary, is we're going to put the stairs in. I think we can just knock out that brazier and put the stairs there. No, or we can just do this. We'll do this. What we're going to do is put the stairs starting there? They're very dark. Oh, because I'm using the wrong ones, that's why. And that happens a lot too, let me tell you. Stairs. Stairs, 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 stairs up. Okay, again, I don't have a problem with them necessarily being almost obscured like that by the rubble, but I am going to clear away some of this mess. Apparently not. There we are. Again, just to make it feel like it's a collapse bit. So we can see that our stairs are here. And lead upwards to wherever it is that these stairs are going. So let's do that. Okay. Right, so just a little bit more debris I think is needed, and that primarily comes from the flavor battlefield. Just lots of lovely bits of brokenness. To make it feel really crumbled. And now, if the players do not want to clear rubble out of their rooms, I would be amazed. I really would be amazed. So that automatically gives them a common purpose, a common cause with your castle. Okay. These outer towers would not necessarily have the spiral staircases. They could quite easily get by with simple ladders. So I'm going to throw in some ladders there. I'm not going to go full on spiral. There's no need, I don't think, for that. This is looking pretty ruined to me. The wooden stuff we'll come back to a bit later on. Let's just fill in this. And again, it's about, you just vary the scale, vary the rotation, and I think it ends up looking pretty damn decent. So, well, that bit of wall there is given way, that bit's given way, that's no good, oh, we've got to reinforce that. It's like any kind of building contractor would come in and say, oh, it's going to cost you a fortune, mate. Better just to start afresh, start from scratch, actually, than to try and repair it. That's often what they say. Right, there's this torn cloth, which, I don't know, maybe it works for you, maybe it's too much. I'm going to liberally sort of sprinkle some torn cloth around. And bearing in mind with these maps, when you print them out, they obviously come out at a much higher resolution than the screen that you're currently seeing. So you will definitely see the detailing that's gone into those bits of torn fabric and the like. Okay, what else do we need? Wooden beams, broken wooden beams, nah. Some boulders. Oh, we can drop in a boulder here or there to show that maybe the castle was under siege once. It doesn't really do a huge amount for me personally. So I'm going to leave that. Dead horses, dead bits and pieces, broken ruins. There's nothing wrong with sort of dropping a bit of broken masonry here and there. I don't think personally. Again, it just adds to the whole feel of it. Just if you're adding in these sort of squares, you need to know that what made that square. So here it's like the wall has sort of crumbled in on itself, which is absolutely fine. If I were to just sort of plonk down a square here, it's like, well, what used to be there? And I think we'd have a bit of an argument. I think they would have diverted the river, to be perfectly honest with you. I think that would have diverted that river. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to rework that river, because it really is a problem, which I didn't anticipate when I was designing to begin with. So, but you never can. You never can. You just start and you go and you adjust and adapt as one does. I think anyway. I think they've got these trench effects, which are quite nice as well, if one wanted to add in a sort of a trenchy thing. But I'm quite happy with that. What am I going to put in that far tower, I hear you ask? I ask the same question. Trust me. I'm going to do that, just to make it feel as if it is old and collapsed on itself. And maybe what I'll do, this is the wrong place for it, once I've dropped in some of this stuff. Maybe what we can do is we'll put into there something like, I don't want to put a chest in there. That feels very gamey to me. It feels very much like what one would expect there to be. So I don't want to do that. Maybe we'll put a broken barrel in here. If any of the players can fly, if they've got something that can do that, then they'll get in here quite easily. Maybe what we could do is that we could put this urn in here. It's a brass closed urn. It says it's an urn. We determine what it is exactly, and so maybe it isn't an urn, maybe it's a jar of something. Who knows? So it could be anything. I like these bones. I'm going to put these bones on our silver platter. That was what was for dinner before this place was abandoned. Right. We've got some little rooms here to finish up. This structure here is irritating me, so it's gone, and so is that one, because I don't think it's adding much. This one has gone as well, and this one as well. I'm liking the look that we're getting of this abandoned castle without all the extra stuff, and so it's gone. There we go. It's just gone, just like that. No remorse whatsoever. And when I get to that river, you can bet your bottom dollar that that river is gone. It serves no purpose any longer. I was going to use it, as I mentioned before, perhaps there's a water nymph in there. Perhaps there's, who knows? Who knows? We can discover that as we get there. We don't have to be constricted by it now if we don't want to. So it is something that I think we tend to forget. It's like, oh, we've got to do it now. No, we don't have to do it now. We are in control here. So just by adding some extra wood on top, to me, I imagine that a castle is built out of wood and stone. It's not just stone. So a few little bits and pieces of broken wood, to my mind, just make the rubble feel a little bit more realistic, if I could put it that way. I've got one final trick which I'm going to show you when we get there. Let's just plonk in some wood here, because maybe the blacks, I mean, these places are still going. It's not like they've been abandoned completely. They've sort of stopped caring, really. And we can build the rest of the layers as one wants to, as you need to. Perhaps we should build the second floor up, although that is only really the towers and things. So it's not very complicated, but quite possibly we need to. Some of the things that we do need to put in is we need to put in our ladders for how our archers would have got to the second floor. Same as in here. They would have done that and that. Oh, and then I wanted that winch, the windlass, which is going to hopefully in the old days anyway, it would open and lower the drawbridge, which we don't have. And I like drawbridges. I think they're quite classical in a way. So I think what we're going to do is we are going to fake a drawbridge, or what remains of one, on either side, having broken. I don't know if I can use those chains. Not that smart in manipulating the program. All right, so we've got our winches there. We worked that out. Let's go and solve our terrain problem. Now, bearing in mind that this is not, when I go to the ground floor level. Oops, what did I do? I added a level. No, so I want to be on the ground floor level. This is not necessarily what the program was designed to do. It was designed to make beautiful floor plans, which, as you can see, it does really well. So when I use it for my weird and wonderful means, don't judge it too harshly. I'm taking out all of this nonsense. Maybe I shouldn't take out all of that nonsense. I'm going to take out some of this nonsense so that I can come in and I can redraw it so that it feels better. Now, they do have quite a few tools which I have never played with, so this will be a first for me. I just want to make sure that I've got rid of all of the nonsense that I had before. Okay, so what they have, and since we're on the ground floor, I can now add that with impunity without mucking up my design, is they do have a world map option, which I've never looked at, but I'm looking at now to see if perhaps they've got trees, they've got hills, cliffs. Here we go. What do they look like? That's not too bad, actually. That's not too bad. So to indicate, I know it's a different view. It's not the correct sort of topographical look, but I think it's going to serve my purposes in terms of indicating to my players, here be the end of the structure. Now, how do these link together, I wonder? Can't do it that way. Let's see. Supposed to be mirroring it. That doesn't look like it's mirroring. Oh, there we go. So I've got to figure out which is the way that these will work to potentially look like cliffs, or am I wasting my time? And I think the answer is I can play around with this later. If I've got my players coming over in a couple of hours, that's not what I want to do. So I want to build cliff face. I'm going to move away now from color. I'm going to go to texture. I don't know why it's doing that now. Brush thickness, texture, wood leaf. Oh, because I'm in world map. I don't want to be in world map. I want to be in all. So let's go with rock. Do we have some natural stone? Yes, we do. And let's go with brown rock face. And that's our thickness. So this is the edge of the castle. I'm going to slide along to here. Okay. Now, I'm working at about 50% opacity, so I know I'm going to have to go over this a couple of times to make it dark enough that it can be sort of seen. But I think this is giving me a pretty good effect of cliff face. which I'm going to come and play around with a little later on. Okay, and then we need cliff face all around this tower. And under it, actually. All right, good. Cliff face. Maybe we want to break it up a little bit. I'm not convinced necessarily. Layers of rock. Yeah, that kind of looks okay. So by layering it, by adding in different textures, different feelings and things, you can build up quite a nice sort of look. Okay, top grass is going to be grass. There's no need to gild the lily, as they say. Grass, here we go. Grass with bits of flowers. Yeah, I can go with that. Something like this. And I'm just going to go all over. And we're going to come back and we're going to play with sizes, because if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know that I like to play around with different scales and things just to get them to look differently. So they don't all look too terribly uniform. As you can see is happening here. It looks very uniform in terms of the shape that I'm getting there. I'm not too keen on that particular shape there. So I can come back, select a line, select the shape. It's at 200%. I'm going to make it 300%. There we go. So now it's not looking so repeated. I don't know if you can actually see that huge difference, but it's definitely working for me. All right, so there we go. Oh, and then this lower level. Let's get rid of this horrid green. Goodbye, 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 goodbye. And we'll get rid of the blue, because we will redefine our river, I believe. Okay, now we're going to do our river slightly differently as well. Okay, let's just do some more grass. Wild grass growing, I think would be quite nice. Wild grass growing. Oopsie, what have I done? Let's just undo that. I want to paint with wild grass. There we go, short grass growing. Again, just to mix it up and make it feel different. Oh, what I did want to do, now that my brain has caught up with my flu symptoms, I suppose, I can't blame that forever, is go to flavor and go and have a look at these trenches, because these trenches seem to be as if one can connect them. Now, this is something that's new. Now, whenever something new comes out, I like to experiment around with it and see what it sort of looks like. So if we were to put some trenches here, they are naturally going to sit underneath the buildings that we've put in. That took a long time to think of that word, good grief. So I'm going to say that they have these trenches, and I can see what they've done is they wanted the trenches to be sort of extendable. So I'm going to put this trench here as if it was part of the moat, but the moat has, that one must go, and I need to use another one of those. The moat has filled in and sort of gotten forgotten about by the original keeper. And we're going to have to figure out who this owner is at some point. Again, though, I'm not too phased. It could be a PC's character backstory. It could be anything, for that matter. It really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. So there's a bit of a filling in there. I don't mind doing a bit of a fill in there. And then what I'm going to do is go to the jungle and grab some vines and things just to, yeah, we'll use those ones there. These ones are quite nice. So these sort of vines I quite like, just for showing that they've grown over, and what once was a swamp is now a ditch. Or what once was a moat, I should say, is now a swamp / ditch. Okay, anyway, that was an aside. We go back here, we're going to draw our river. So I'm going to come in here and I'm actually going to make it a shape. And this is not going to be above the walls. It is with an inner shadow. It doesn't have an outer shadow. And this shape, we are going to choose water. Now, water would be afterwards. Water, 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 water everywhere. Now, they've only got these crystal clear lakes of beauty, so that's kind of what we are sitting with. That's okay. I am going to do this. Pressing shift so that I can sort of create more of an organic shape. I'm not constrained. And I'm actually going to make this whole thing a lake down here. Because that way I can put in electric eels into the lake. I can, you know, make it so that venturing out to this lone tower is incredibly dangerous and not for the foolhardy, if you like. Now, we definitely need to change your scale, if you please. Okay, there we go. It's a little bit harsh, I will admit. It is a little bit harsh. So what we do is we select the shape and we're on the right tool, I believe. And the whole thing needs a key. That's what it needs. We can try and play around with the color, I suppose, if we really wanted to, but maybe it doesn't need an outline. How does that look? That looks better. All right, so that looks better. And in this, we can obviously come in and paint darker water just on the edges of our diagram, if we want to make sort of the idea that there's waves. Sploshing on the seaside, I suppose. However you want to play it. I mean, you can spend hours twisting and tweaking. The idea is it's surrounded by water. Oh dear. There's water everywhere. Gives us a general vibe, and yeah. Okay, you get the point. So when we go back to our top view, when we go back to our master view, I should say, we end up with something that looks like this. And I can hide that away. We can now add in trees, which we most definitely will. Let's do that quickly. And I'm going to use fantasy trees. My favorite part of this program is the fact that you can select fir tree and you say randomize rotation, randomize scale to a maximum of 200%, randomize the mirroring, and then you can just start plonking down trees. And you can really just make the map come alive, I think, especially so by mixing things up. So you go, okay, well, we're going to put a tree here. I think the idea that the moat trenches kind of works at the moment. I think by hiding it with trees it looks a bit better. By breaking it up, looks even better. If we put some trees down here, change to autumnal tree. Maybe there's even a, and of course it's giving me a little one now, but maybe there's a tree in the middle here that needs to be chopped down. Nothing on those sides, I don't think. Tree stumps we can throw in. Plenty, of course. Back to big tree. That's a really big tree, which is great. Kind of fills up the map a bit more. All right, there we go. I'm not unhappy with this map at all. And I think that when I present this potential castle to the players, they will invest heavily. They'll start clearing out the stuff. They'll start making it their own. And what have they gained? Generally speaking, not a huge amount. We've given them a space. We can now populate it with NPCs who are going to help them, who will look after their gear. They can come back here when they need to. They really can make the most of this space. And it's given us a great opportunity to tell amazing stories. Anyway, thank you for watching all the way through to this point. If you have, and if you haven't, I understand why too. Until next time though, happy campaign creating.